is KCAL News, Los Angeles.
They're all falling. The force of gravity is taking them.
Now at 9, the earth is still moving under these homes after a landslide ripped them off their foundations. And neighbors are worried their homes could be next. Plus, a critical 48 hours for Hollywood actors could soon be next to join the picket lines. We'll tell you where negotiations stand tonight. And critical fire danger. As temperatures heat up, experts warn about the threat of major wildfires. Good evening, everybody. I'm Juan Fernandez. Pat Harvey is off tonight. Homes swallowed up by the earth as the ground shifts beneath them in Rolling Hills Estates, 2 days after a devastating landslide. And tonight, buildings on the hillside are still slowly crumbling. The disaster is unfolding on Pear Tree Lane, where a dozen homes inside a gated community have been destroyed. KCAL News reporter Leslie Maring is there live at Rolling Hills Estates City Hall, where a meeting with residents took place. Leslie.
Yeah, Juan, I could tell you that residents met with city and county officials, and that meeting lasting nearly 3 hours. We did speak to some of them as they were walking out. We asked them, well, hey, how did it go? Many telling us, well, you know what? We still have so many questions about what is going to happen in the next few hours. But back on that street, I can tell you every minute that hillside is moving.
That house was literally broken into half like this.
County and city leaders returned back to Pear Tree Lane late Monday afternoon, where tonight 12 homes continue to slide down this hillside, and 16 more are now at risk.
Everything's collapsing. They're all falling. The force of gravity is taking them. They will all eventually go.
Drone video shows townhomes ripped away from their driveways, collapsed roofs, broken windows, and even a buckled chimney. Deborah Forrester has watched the destruction since it started 48 hours ago.
There was just a minor crack that I could see from where I live in the parapet yesterday morning, and then later in the day it had split.
As of Monday, Supervisor Janice Hahn said the homes moved another 20 feet, but officials don't yet know what caused this. And if the homes go down, what else will go down with it?
And we don't know if this road that we're standing on is not going to be here in a week. And I think that's why everyone's waiting on like a geologist to give us an expert opinion, because we might have feelings, but they're not based on fact or science.
A geologist has yet to come out to examine the hill, Hahn confirmed.
It's up to the HOA to hire the geologist, but I don't know if we have any update, because I do think some of the residents whose homes are not moving yet would also like a little bit of an understanding. Is there anything they can do at this point to shore up?
Like Sapade Razapur, she voluntarily left with her 2 kids Sunday after recording this video from her front door of a home she bought just 2 weeks ago.
We didn't feel safe because nobody knows how bad it's going to be.
But a glimmer of hope for those who lost everything. The county assessor who toured the damage today is already working to make sure these homeowners won't have to pay property taxes when it's time.
These homes behind us, there are no improvements. Those are a total loss. And the land that was beneath them is now going to be a hillside. So when we're done valuing this property, they will have nominal value.
Supervisor Hahn did say she did reach out to the governor in hopes of declaring this a state of emergency, which of course means more resources and more money could be brought in. She says as of this afternoon, she is yet to hear back. Reporting live, Leslie Marin, KCAL News.
What a nightmare for those homeowners. Leslie, thank you. As Hollywood struggles to recover from a costly Writers Guild strike, there's a new industry cliffhanger unfolding. Will actors join the picket lines? KCAL's Joy Benedict joins us now with the very latest. Joy?
Yeah, Juan, as you know, there's 170,000 members of SAG-AFTRA. The majority of them are actors and actresses working under this contract. There are more than 500 different contracts, though, but the largest one that affects the majority of the entertainment we all love to watch is expiring in a matter of hours, as negotiators are working almost around the clock to come to an agreement that would prevent actors and performers from striking.
For centuries, our kind has stayed hidden on Earth.
They are the blockbusters we expect, but the biggest hit for the industry this month may be another strike.
Most of the people in our business are struggling to make a living.
Ellen Crawford first joined SAG and AFTRA back in 1979. She says she's fortunate to have been a working actor ever since, but she says her industry is full of actors who can't make ends meet.
Things need to change, absolutely. It's unsustainable. There's been a complete change in the business model.
SAG-AFTRA and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers are down to the wire, trying to negotiate a new deal for its largest contract, which expires Wednesday night.
Scripted television on broadcast, on cable, on pay cable like HBO, and on streamers, that is all affected by this contract.
Jonathan Handel is an entertainment attorney.
SAG-AFTRA is looking for wage increases that reflect the fact that we had 6.5% and 7% inflation.
Although there is a media blackout for negotiations, Handel says money is the biggest issue, especially since the industry model has changed so much with more and more shows streaming. Actors want a residual structure that matches viewership.
Used to be that you would make more money the more popular a show was. It was set up that way. The streaming model really doesn't fit how we're paid now.
Shows that are successful, they want an additional residual, an additional royalty payment to reflect that success. That's something that the studios and streamers resist because, among other things, it would require giving, potentially at least, giving data on how well shows do.
Another issue is health and retirement, as the contribution cap by studios hasn't increased since 1982.
We are in a tight economic standpoint, according to the studios and streamers. Theatrical box office is still down 25% or so from what it was pre-COVID.
We are the union! Mighty, mighty union! And since the writers are already striking and have been for weeks, a double walkout will surely mean an end to the shows that fans are still hoping will come back soon.
This could bring the industry to a standstill.
Now, it's important to remember that although Hollywood is known for its glitz and glamour, those who make millions is a very small percentage of all the actors working. As union leaders will say, this is a working class profession. Now, as for the timeline, the current contract expires at 11:59 on Wednesday night. Union members have already voted to authorize a strike, but that decision has to come from the National Board, which has a meeting scheduled for 9 a.m. Thursday morning, just in case they don't get a contract before that. That is also when they will clarify what jobs can and can't be done during that strike. One of the things is promotional things like Comic-Con. That would be not happening. Juan?
That's right, Joy. All right, thanks so much. And we should note anchors and reporters here at KCAL News are members of SAG-AFTRA, but we fall under a different collective bargaining agreement, and therefore the news you watch will not be affected by this SAG-AFTRA strike if it happens. Right now to a dangerous combination of fire and heat. You're seeing it there. A brush fire broke out in Castaic near the 5 freeway at Vista del Lago. It happened after a tow truck caught fire around 3 this afternoon. 30 acres burned. It's about 50% contained at this hour. One LA County firefighter had to be treated for minor injuries. And with the intense heat heading our way, there are concerns it could drastically boost the fire danger. We have live team coverage for you tonight, starting with KCAL meteorologist Evelyn Taft. Ev?
Yeah, and Juan, I mean, it's still very warm to hot out there tonight, and this is just the beginning of this heat wave that's officially kicking in tomorrow. I mean, tonight we're still in the 70s and 80s, 90s, and triple digits as we head to the desert, and we're much warmer tonight compared to this time last night. You'll see that right here. Now, let's take a look at these watches and warnings pretty much blanketing most of Southern California, and as we head into the next few days, we're expecting excessive heat, and you'll see excessive heat watches kicking in tomorrow, lasting through Sunday. We're talking heat advisories for the IE, excessive heat watches for the high desert, the Santa Clarita Valley, parts of Ventura County as well. We're going to continue to track it all for you, but for now, I'll send it back to you, Juan.
All right, we'll check back later, Ev. Thanks. The heat has climate experts concerned, of course, and our team coverage continues with KCAL News reporter Nicole Comstock. She's live in Duarte for us tonight. Nicole?
Well, it could be a bit of a shock to our systems to experience a heat wave like this, especially after such a cold, rainy, gloomy season like the one we had. But a climate scientist we spoke with tonight says don't let that fool you. It's already drying out up here in our foothill communities. We're on the heels of a week-long heat wave here in Southern California. So ready or not, people are preparing to adapt to those blazing hot days.
Right now it's getting too hot. and I just put the air conditioner.
We have a pool, so we'll be in the pool all weekend.
But the prolonged heat wave will do more than make you sweat. It will bring critical fire danger to our foothill communities.
Things now are really starting to dry out, and with this upcoming prolonged heat wave, this was a risk that I mentioned earlier in the year.
Daniel Swain is a climate scientist at UCLA. He says it will be hot enough for long enough this week for fires to really take off. Because the historic winter and spring rainfall created lots of new growth on our hillsides, and this kind of heat can very quickly dry it out.
That if we have all this extra growth of brush and grass, especially at lower elevations, early in the season when it remains wet and cool, and then we get a prolonged mid or late season heat event, or multiple prolonged heat events later in the season, you could still dry all of that extra vegetation out and cause a significantly active fire season, despite how cool and moist it's been.
Hopefully it won't happen, you know, because it catches one house, it's like a roller coaster.
Robert Gonzalez lives in Duarte and can remember 2 nearby fires in just the past month.
Chantry Flats, which is the end of Duarte and Monrovia, and then there was another one just right up above here in Bradbury.
Local fire departments are warning people to be extremely careful outdoors with themselves and their surroundings.
Part of living in Southern California, right?
That's life. Take it as it comes, you can't change it.
And this sudden change from cool weather to 90s and 100s could prove to be a very difficult transition for many people. So it's important to keep in mind, especially if you're going to be outdoors, to stay hydrated and stay out of the sun for as long as possible. For now, reporting live in Duarte, I'm Nicole Comstock, KCAL News.
So important to be on alert. Nicole, thanks. Now to this, a small plane crashed through a roof of a hangar at Long Beach Airport today, and we're told the pilot, believe it or not, made it out safely. So what was happening just moments before the crash? KCAL News assignment editor Mike Rogers tracked down the flight radar for us. And Mike, what did you learn?
Yeah, Juan, now we know that this was a student pilot. Our colleagues over at KNX News Radio, actually, one of them actually has flown in this plane, and this plane belongs to a flight school. Now you can see the plane crashed right there into the roof, very precarious. But I want to have you listen to some radio traffic from just moments after the crash happened.
Long Beach ground, there's an aircraft that just crashed in the hangar's past signature.
Okay, we've got the crash phone, thank you.
Yeah, and there's the radar. You can see they were doing what's called touch and goes, which is basically when they practice landing and taking off. They don't ever actually stop on the runway. They just touch down and then go back up. Now, I want to show you some other video here from the crash scene. You can see the Long Beach Fire had to use a ladder truck to get up there. Now, I did listen back to the radio traffic, and the only call that the pilot made was that he had to do a go-around. Now, our colleagues over at KNX have learned that when the pilot tried to do that go-around, he lifted back up to come back up into the air and spun out of control, landing in that roof. Now here, we flew SkyCal over just a short time ago, and you can see that plane is now out of the roof of the building, a sizable hole left there, and the plane now sitting upright on the ground, missing kind of that half of that left wing there. Now, Juan, as we come back out here to the desk, as we said, that pilot, remarkably only minor injuries, able to get out of the aircraft on his own. Long Beach Fire helped him off the roof, took him to the hospital just to have him checked out. We know he's a man in his 40s. Now, exactly why he lost control, if something happened, if there was engine failure, caught the wind the wrong way, all of that is going to be investigated by the FAA and the NTSB, but now at least that plane is out of the roof, but obviously some structural damage that will need to be replaced. One.
Yeah, and that roof probably saved his life too, right, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, right. If it's weird to think, but if he hadn't crashed into the building, he probably would have crashed into the ground, which this story could have ended a lot
different story. All right, Mike, thanks so much. Still ahead here at 9, catastrophic flooding in the Northeast, and the threat isn't over yet. Plus, convicted child sex abuser Larry Nasser stabbed nearly a dozen times in prison. We'll have an update on his condition and what prison officials are saying about how this all happened.
Susie Sa, weeknights, KCAL News.
Severe weather on the East Coast once again impacting flights right here at home. Here's a live look at LAX, which had more than 300 delays and 9 cancellations today. That according to FlightAware. Well, parts of the Northeast were hit with an entire summer's worth of rain in just a few hours. At least one woman died trying to save her dog. CBS's Errol Barnett has a look at the widespread damage.
Tonight, a state of emergency in Vermont with life-threatening flooding.
Up to 8 inches of rain fell today, turning scenic landscapes into deadly rivers of mud.
First thing I saw was my car underwater.
Nearly the entire state was under a flash flood warning.
It's certainly been a long event so far, and it's not over yet. We will have primary rivers rising and even more flooding tomorrow.
14 swift rescue crews from as far away as North Carolina saved nearly 24 people from cars, trees, and homes. Now dozens of roads are crumbled and impassable. The deluge reminding some of Tropical Storm Irene, when 8 inches of rain fell in less than a day.
We have not seen rain fall like this since Irene, and in some places it will surpass even that.
New York's Hudson Valley was slammed. Within just a matter of hours Sunday, the torrential downpour completely destroyed this segment of Route 218 just north of West Point. The damage is so extensive it may be months before this can be repaired.
The water just kept coming.
Cindy and Richard Byers have no idea how they'll dig debris out of their creekside home.
Well, you can see how powerful it was. Look what it did to all you can see right where it went. It just pushed all that debris right wherever it could, and the water was barreling over it.
So now, what do you say to people who see the warnings and see the alerts about severe thunderstorms coming?
Yeah, get the hell out. That's it.
Yeah, you gotta heed the warnings.
Yep.
Errol Barnett, CBS News in Stony Point, New York.
Tonight, we're learning new details about the violent prison attack of disgraced former USA gymnastics team doctor Larry Nassar, who is accused of sexually abusing hundreds of athletes. CBS's Manuel Bojorquez on the many questions tonight about how Nassar was stabbed multiple times at a high-security facility in Florida.
This is the prison where Larry Nassar was stabbed 10 times in the back, neck, and chest by another inmate on Sunday. That's according to the president of the local union representing prison employees. Nassar is serving a life sentence for sexually abusing young girls. Sarah Klein was one of Nassar's first victims.
As a survivor in this case, it doesn't make my healing journey any easier to know that Larry Nassar was stabbed.
For nearly 20 years, Nassar was the Michigan State University and USA Gymnastics team doctor. Hundreds of female gymnasts, like Klein, came forward to say Nassar molested them, including Olympic stars like Simone Biles.
To be clear, I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse.
A Justice Department report found that USA Gymnastics contacted the FBI about Nassar as early as 2015, but inaction by the FBI allowed Nassar to victimize 70 or more young female athletes before his arrest in 2016.
I desire immensely for Larry Nassar not to die at the hands of another inmate in his 50s, but to die as a man of old age who is behind bars. That is justice.
Nassar is said to be in stable condition tonight. The president of the local union for prison employees says they are facing staffing shortages with 44 unfilled positions in the prison Nassar was in when he was attacked. Manuel Bojorquez, CBS News, Fort Lauderdale.
Tonight, we have an update to a disturbing story at the Camp Pendleton Marine Corps base. A Marine there has been released back to his military command after being questioned about a once missing teen girl. The 14-year-old was found last month in the barracks at the base after being reported missing by her grandmother. It's still unclear how the girl and the Marine know each other, but so far, no one has been arrested. The case has been handed over to the Naval Criminal Investigative Service, the federal agency that investigates Navy and Marine Corps criminal cases. President Biden met with King Charles and British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in London today before heading to Lithuania for the start of a NATO summit. Ukraine is set to be the main topic of discussion at the annual summit. The country is seeking full membership in the military alliance and has broad support from most of NATO's member countries. President Biden has said the war between Russia and Ukraine needs to end before Ukraine is ready for membership in NATO. Otherwise, the U.S. and all member states could be compelled to join the war.
No final decision has been made, but at the summit I'm absolutely certain that we'll have a unity and a strong message on Ukraine.
NATO announced late Monday that Turkey has agreed to accept Sweden into the NATO alliance. They had been blocking membership for months. Sweden and the other new members, Finland, extends NATO's border with Russia by more than 900 miles. UPS and the Teamsters Union are at a standstill in their contract negotiations, and the time is running out before a possible strike. 97% of unionized UPS employees voted in favor of going on strike if a deal isn't reached by the end of the month. Several parts of a new contract have already been agreed to by both sides, but the union is still looking for pay increases for both full and part-time workers. UPS claims the Teamsters have stopped negotiating and called its own proposals historic, but the Teamsters argue they deserve more for working through the pandemic.
Because if it wasn't for the part-timers, if it wasn't for the full-timers, this country wouldn't have ran through the pandemic. And UPS made $100 billion, so they certainly can afford to reward these people that made them a tremendous success.
The last time UPS workers went on strike was in 1997, and operations were shut down for over 2 weeks. As we reported earlier, Hollywood actors could soon be joining writers on the picket lines, and one of the big issues revolves around artificial intelligence and how it can create performances that don't exist. CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti takes a look at how this growing technology is transforming the industry.
At the age of 80, Harrison Ford is starring as Indiana Jones, both old and young. Audiences could soon see a new performance by James Dean, who died in 1955. And an upcoming film will feature Tom Hanks and Robin Wright as they appeared in Forrest Gump nearly 30 years ago.
I'm going to show you some magic.
This man became famous as a young Tom Cruise, a makeover from the AI company Metaphysic.
You know, I do all my own stunts, obviously.
It is now immortalizing actors through image capture like this to appear in future films without ever being on set. CEO Tom Graham.
There is a move now from many people to preserve their likeness that in the future could be used to create their performance. This is going to be a core asset for every performer.
I could be hit by a bus tomorrow, and that's it. But my performances can go on and on and on and on and on.
But how that likeness is preserved, who has access to it, and who cashes in on it are key concerns of SAG-AFTRA, the union that represents actors.
We're not anti-AI. It is okay for performers' likeness, image, voice to be digitally modeled and captured, provided they know exactly what it's going to be used for and see that there are appropriate safeguards in place to make sure that that data is not made available beyond its intended use.
Safeguards that currently don't exist.
We need to focus heavily on the ethics and how we deploy AI. And so we need to really work hard to move our institutions very, very quickly to be able to accommodate some of these new potential outcomes.
Jonathan Vigliotti, CBS News, Hollywood.
Do you have a favorite tree, maybe the one you sat under when you were a kid? Well, you're about to meet a forest researcher and learn about his favorite tree with an incredible story of its own. CBS News environmental reporter David Schechter hiked deep into the forests of Montana for a week-long series of stories about the impact of climate change on wildfires. Here's a preview.
Well, this is one of my favorite trees of all time. From afar, it just looks like, okay, there's one fire. But you can actually go in here and count. You can see. So
you're saying there's more than one fire did this?
Oh yeah, several fires. Fire 1 came along and damaged the tree here. And then it kept growing to seal up the wound, and then fire 2 came and damaged the tree. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Ish.
So it's been in 13 forest fires?
At least.
And it's still here?
Yeah.
And it's doing great, actually.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Good. Yeah. That's why it's one of my favorites. It's my top 10.
Are we going to see the other 9?
That's going to be a lot more 15-minute walks.
Well, all this week, we're taking an in-depth look at the growing problem of wildfires here in California and around the U.S. Coming up tomorrow, we will look at a century of fueling fires. Have plans to protect your forests actually backfired? Find out tomorrow on KCAL News at 9. New video of a landslide destruction in a local neighborhood. Ahead at 10, why your homeowner's insurance may not cover something like this. Plus, the new battle over beach access in one of California's priciest zip codes. The tale of baby bears saved because rescuers refused to give up even after days. That's all next at 10. But first, here at 9, 4 taco stand robberies in just one night. Police in South LA trying to track these suspects down, who they say hit all 4 locations. KCAL News assignment editor Mike Rogers is here at the desk. And Mike, it seems like we've been reporting on these a lot lately. Is there a rise in these crimes?
Yeah, so Juan, I was able to talk to the watch commander, the lieutenant down there at Newton Division. He's the one that was kind of handling these 4 that happened in the overnight hours. And as we look at some video from those robberies last night, he tells me that anecdotally, yes, they are going up. There is a pretty big spike in them. And what's interesting about these, there were 4 last night. LAPD believes they're all perpetrated by the same person or group of people. Now, they get out of the car, they're armed, and they rob these guys. And here's why they're so attractive to these criminals. The LAPD tells me, unlike, some brick and mortar businesses that have really started to move away from cash, these businesses are almost exclusively cash because they don't have things like ATMs. They don't really have kind of cash registers in a traditional sense. So some of them take Zelle, Venmo, and other kind of electronic transfers like that. But a lot of them are a cash business by design. And so that makes these really quick and easy targets for these thieves. Now, as we come back out here to the desk, the other part of this is that, excuse me, these taco stands, because they're mobile, many of them don't have security cameras. So it's not something that police can very quickly review the video and say, okay, these are our guys that we're looking for. Many of the times they're just going off witness descriptions. So Juan, it's a kind of a weird situation here, but these are on the rise according to police, and they are kind of hard to stop.
They sure are. All right, and dangerous too. All right, Mike, thanks. A dangerous fugitive in California is in custody tonight. Eric Abril spent only a day on the run after escaping from a Northern California hospital yesterday. He's accused of taking 2 hostages and murdering 1 during a shootout with police 3 months ago. Abril was found in a ravine behind an apartment complex. The city of LA remains in a state of emergency because of its homeless crisis. Today, LA Mayor Karen Bass and the city council president announced a change to the existing emergency declaration. The changes give more resources to fight homelessness and will provide more frequent updates on the progress. According to the mayor's office, more than 1,300 Angelenos have been helped off the streets through the mayor's Inside Safe program.
The reality is that our city continues to be in an emergency, and that's why we're taking this action today, to continue access to tools and powers to make sure that we are using every resource possible at the scale that is needed to save lives and restore our neighborhoods.
The city council will consider renewal of the emergency order every 90 days. There's a new push to get drivers to slow down. Glendale will be a pilot city for an ambitious 5-year speed camera program. If legislation is approved, they will be installed in school zones and in areas with a history of speeding problems and crashes. Supporters say cities are strapped to hire people, so technology is the most efficient way to solve the problem.
We have neither the resources nor the ability to hire enough officers to make that a reality. No city does. It's impractical. So the obvious thing is technology. And right now, the most easy to implement technology is speed cameras.
The American Civil Liberties Union opposes the cameras. They argue communities can increase safety without expanding surveillance. Glendale is one of 6 California cities, including LA and Long Beach, designated to get state money to fund the program under AB 645. New concerns are being raised tonight about America's epidemic of gun violence. 8 mass shootings, including this one in Cleveland, were recorded over the weekend. 9 people were killed and more than 30 others were wounded. In 2023, there have been more than 370 mass shootings, according to the Gun Violence Archive. Correspondent Pamela Brown reports even states that have red flag laws aimed at ending gun-related crimes are having a tough time enforcing them.
Vanessa Salgado's nightmare began last spring in her Albuquerque home.
He was molesting my daughter.
Salgado learned her live-in boyfriend, Bradley Wallen, had been sexually assaulting her 16-year-old daughter, Alexia, for years. She called the sheriff's department.
We're going to try to get an emergency restraining order.
On the body cam video, you can hear Alexia telling deputies about an argument.
He was telling me that I had been acting like I had an attitude towards him. I couldn't keep it in, and I said, it's because you sexually assaulted me. And then he got out of his car and he admitted what he did. He told me it was wrong.
Weeks later, Wallen spotted Alexia's car at a shopping center. He shot and killed her and her cousin Mario Salgado, and then turned the gun on himself. It was Mother's Day.
No parent wants to lose a child. No parent wants to see their child gone before them. Honestly, I wish he would have took me and let her live.
Vanessa says she had told law enforcement Wallen owned guns. The restraining order she filed against him lists 2 firearms.
And I literally opened up the drawer that had the guns in it and showed the officer.
And did the officer say anything about whether those guns could be taken away?
No.
These two were inseparable.
What Vanessa didn't know then is that New Mexico passed a red flag law, which allows firearms to be temporarily taken away from those deemed dangerous to themselves or others. Deputies escorted Wallen as he retrieved his weapons from the home, along with his belongings.
I said I was concerned he possibly might commit suicide.
So you told law enforcement you were worried he would commit suicide?
Yes, ma'am.
That alone should have allowed Vanessa or the police to file what's called an extreme risk firearm protection order or gun restraining order, but she was never told of that option.
I just wish I would have known. So I would have had the right path to protect my daughter and my nephew.
The system failed on all facets.
Sheriff John Allen wasn't in office last year when the murders happened, but he says there was a breakdown in the process.
She did convey that he could harm himself. That seems to be an example of when guns should be taken away under this law, right?
Correct.
So was it a mistake they weren't?
I don't think it was communicated correctly. The information wasn't relayed to the district attorney's office enough, and that could be from our detectives, that could be from family, that could be from witnesses, that could be from victims.
What happened to the Salgado family is a key example of how difficult it can be to implement these life-saving laws in some states. Records obtained by CNN show New Mexico's red flag law has only been used about 30 times since it took effect in 2020. As a comparison, Florida's similar law has been utilized more than 11,000 times since it was enacted in 2018.
It's difficult for people to understand how to enforce the law. Education and training hasn't gone around the state like it should have.
Of the 21 states that have red flag laws on the books, New Mexico is by far the most gun violent. It's a blue state that is mostly rural, yet it has the 3rd highest gun mortality rate per capita in the U.S. Even with that violence, New Mexico sheriffs petitioned against the passage of the law and created Second Amendment sanctuary counties where it wouldn't be enforced. A judge weighs every decision, but because red flag laws are relatively new, there tends to be misinformation.
It's not law enforcement filing in a vacuum. There is a judge looking at the facts of the case and then making a determination based on that.
Studies show red flag laws can work to diffuse potential violence. The key is making sure people know about them.
I just want to have a voice for my kids, and I want this story to be told. And hopefully it will save another mother that's going through the same thing I'm going through.
According to a recent Johns Hopkins study, red flag laws have temporarily disarmed more than 660 people in 6 states who threatened to kill multiple people. All right, coming up next here at 9, how much caffeine is too much caffeine? Some lawmakers are calling for an investigation into a new energy drink made popular by social media influencers. Lawmakers are raising the alarm over a popular energy drink. It has 6 times the amount of caffeine of a regular can of Coke and poses a health risk to children and teenagers. KCAL News reporter Gloria Pazmino reports.
It's one of the hottest trends of the summer. Now, the influencer-created energy drink Prime is facing growing scrutiny.
This is an eye-popping level of caffeine for a young kid's body.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer is calling on the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to investigate the product. Prime energy drinks contain more than double the caffeine of a can of Red Bull and 6 times more caffeine than a can of Coca-Cola.
The amount of caffeine in these drinks can give children and teens headaches, It can give them jitters, nervousness. It can interfere with the sleep cycle, which is so important to the developing brain.
According to its website, the company does not recommend the energy drinks for anyone under the age of 18. Still, Schumer claims the company is targeting children through social media.
Kids see it on their phones as they scroll, and then they actually have a need for it.
The company also sells a caffeine-free drink called Prime Hydration, but there are concerns the branding between the two products are too similar.
Because the product is billed as a hydration and sports drink in its other near identical form, kids are likely to ingest cans of this stuff with the parents being unaware.
I'm Gloria Pasmino reporting.
The company issued a statement that says, in part, as a brand, our top priority is consumer safety, so we welcome discussions from the FDA or any other organization regarding suggested industry changes they feel are necessary in order to protect consumers. All right, thanks for watching KCAL News at 9. KCAL News at 10 starts right now.